just to explain that I have been working on a project with some other people called Healy Dragons, which was an attempt to make an entertaining and educational book about mythical creatures to explain scientific principles and some other things as well. I have now published that book. However, the deadline was on the 30th of November, so I've now published it. But I published it in a way which is not public. It's available only to me. Now the reason for that is that I didn't get enough illustrations. Now I want to explain, I don't actually think that's anyone else's fault but mine. I could have taken two approaches to this. One is to attempt to acquire the skills at drawing and illustration that I didn't have and to illustrate it myself. The other will be to communicate with people properly so that they are able to understand where I'm coming from with things and provide illustrations. One of the things that I think I can learn from this project is that I shouldn't try to get other people to do things for me, and as far as possible these things should be self-contained. They should be things that I do myself. If it involves skills that I don't have, I should either acquire those skills or I should rethink the project so that those skills are not needed. I have done that to some extent with this. Right. Now there is also another problem, which is my own laziness. I am a very lazy person. I contributed 60,000 words to the project over a period of about 8 or 9 months. That is really not very productive of me. I can easily write that amount in a very short period of time because my problem is with verbosity and not with brevity. So that's another issue. However, I do think that 60,000 words was about the right length for that book, judging by other similar projects that I've looked at. So, why not miss the deadline? Well, the reason I don't think it would be a good idea to miss the deadline is that I impose that deadline on myself. If I then go past that deadline, any deadline I impose on myself in future will then be harder to take seriously, and therefore I won't stick to deadlines. It's very important to stick to deadlines to achieve anything. If I don't do that, I do things like I'll miss the tax deadline and end up paying, as I am at the moment, 660 quid per person because I didn't fill in the tax forms on time. And that's not very good for somebody on an income as low as mine. And there's loads of other things as well. There's just a general lack of achievement if I do that. Now, one of the odd things about this process was that I actually found that peripheral activities that were connected to it were actually more successful. And this is a general theme in my life. I actually regard the herbalism to an extent as a peripheral activity, for example, and it's actually quite a successful peripheral activity. When I actually try to focus on something, I find that it's harder to be successful at it than if I don't focus on it. And I think that's something I can learn, I can take away from that. Two things that I did. I published an ebook of short stories which sold very well, in fact better than the other projects I did, which was a dummy run for a print publishing of Healy Dragons itself, which was the book you could have thought of that, which is currently under revision. Both of those actually did well, considering that I wasn't very focused on doing them. Now, I don't know what to make of that. I find it a bit irritating that I'm successful when I don't try, and when I do try, I fail. I don't actually consider this to be a failure. I consider it to be a learning experience. I don't consider anyone else to be responsible for putting me in this situation. But the fact is that, yes, the book is now published. It's published in such a way that other people can't access it, and it's going to stay like that unless I can come up with some solution to these problems.